Hello and welcome to today's video. It is Assassin's Creed Shadows story time, folks. Gonna be heavy spoilers throughout this video, no holding back. So if you haven't beat the game, come back later and join the discussion. I want to take some time to discuss the story, what resonated with me, how I feel about it, and go from there. I think before I get started, I like to say that I tend to see too many people be cowards and not give their personal feelings on things because they're scared of society. So we get influenced by others' opinions. And I don't appreciate that. I think that we need to learn to be genuine to ourselves and not fear what others think. I can care less if Ubisoft likes my review or likes my videos. I don't even think they watch, but I can also care less if a viewer disagrees with me. It's not nothing personal, and I'm not here to bash a viewer specifically, but the principle is it's okay. It's okay to not agree, and it's okay to have different tastes and different views. So before I get started, just know that you can go into the comments safely and say you agree or you disagree, and I'll go back and forth with you on why I like whatever I like and why I don't like whatever I don't like. And this is important because I think Assassin's Creed Shadows has been unfortunately put under a shadow of influence from people who just want it to be bad and a bad reputation. And it pretty much, if this game released from an unknown publisher, unknown developer, it would be an easy 9 and or an 8.5, which is what I gave it on my review. An easy 8.5 for most people. But since it's under the Ubisoft umbrella, all the controversy, it gets looked at a little different, even from me. So I just want to put that out there ahead of time before we get into my discussion. I am a optimistic who believes in giving everybody and everything a chance. Maybe it's naive to want the best from the world and expect the best from the world. And even if someone might betray me, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and chance to do something positive, respectful, and good. And that to me is important. And so it's a deeper conversation. I'm not going to get too heavily in there. But the reason this is important is because as I played the game, I realized I did have influences and things did affect me in some ways. I'm still going to have a good time and know how to enjoy myself. But 100%, we all get influenced in some way, shape, or form. And so with that in mind, I also want to put that into the story because I believe the influences of what led these characters to where they are is super interesting. And I believe the way it ended, I was frustrated because I wanted more and I didn't get it. To spoil it right off the top, you have YASUKE and NAOE, who I wanted to see as assassins. I wanted to see them become assassins and fight the Templars directly. And we didn't get that specifically, but we did get them finding purpose in their lives. The game ends on this cliffhanger of, oh, we're going to fight. And we'll talk about it a little more later, but that was one of the most powerful moments. If you're just new to the series, you'll say, damn, this is good. I can't wait for a sequel. Let's get a trilogy. And I do want a trilogy with these two protagonists. But will we get that? I don't know. Either way, I thought it was a great conclusion when it comes to typical standards. Now, as a hardcore Assassin's Creed guy who wants Assassins versus Templars, who wants our protagonists to be assassins from the very start of the game, because the game is called Assassin's Creed. Instead, we get a lot of mystery, a lot of intrigue for people who might be new, like, what does this mean? And for people like myself, I know exactly what it means when they talk about the hidden blade or the Templars and different things that the game hints to early on. And so this is where, I want to start the story and kind of take y'all through the journey of what I felt and what I was thinking as a hardcore fan who specifically wants Assassins vs Templars. I mean, part one still is one of my top 5 because it is an Assassin versus Templar game. It's straightforward. Like, you really are an assassin and you're fighting a Templar. In this game, you don't get that. You get a guy like YASUKE, which we're watching his introduction. He was a servant for these priests, and then Oda Nobunaga sees how big and aware he is and wants to bring him in and help him become somebody who's a samurai. And this is where the story, you know, it's cool. It's like, okay, well, he got recruited. Who is this guy? And it's not that big a deal. But as you go along and you find out Yasuke's story, you start to see there's way more layers to him than we know. And we didn't unveil everything in the game, but we see that he's been from Africa all the way to Japan. And how did that story unfold? And that was kind of the most interesting part of Yasuke, is like, what is really happening with him? You know, you can start the game off thinking he's an assassin or he's a Templar, or, you know, he's kind of like a spy. What is really happening? And you start thinking twice about what his story could be. And that was intriguing for me, because in the beginning, you know, you don't know anything about these characters and you're just curious. And as a longtime fan, I'm like, this would be crazy if he's a Templar and they just reveal it somewhere later and he's a bad guy or something. And so I had all these thoughts running through my head as I played the game. And, you know, and then I started thinking of all the people surrounding him. Who's working for the Templars and who's working for the Assassins? The thing with these games nowadays, the RPG ones, is they will give you this, you know, surface level, but there's deep layers of like, hey, everything you're doing works with the Templars. They're influenced you. And as I said, the word influence, they influence you to do these things. So Oda Nobunaga or the priest there, are they working with the Templars even without knowing it? So even in your life, you're doing that as well. You have a specific side that you're leaning towards, an agenda that you're more for than you are with the others. It's just the way life works. And sometimes you got to pick sides. And so in this game, you see that with all the characters, because you know Japan has so much crazy war. And you start thinking, you know, with all this war that's happened, I do believe that, you know, this could be an interesting time frame as far as Japan itself, even without the protagonist. All of the conflict that they've had, okay, they had the royal family, and I don't want to get too deep into the lore of Japan, but they had the royal family. The royal family learned about the Buddhists, and then they wanted to learn about Christianity, and then they wanted to get the samurai to protect them, and then the samurai try to overthrow them and become the rulers. And it was a lot of back and forth. And then there was anti-samurai, aka shogun, anti-shogun. And then you had all this conflict. Then you had the foreigners coming in trying to take over or influence things, giving them guns and teaching them other stuff about. And it was just insane at that time, if you paid attention. I'm a huge fan of Japan, movies, games, and all that good stuff. So I thought it was very interesting to put the Templars and Assassins in here. So as I play the game, every character I dissected and profiled. Who really is the assassin? Who really is a Templar? As far as their actions and their influence and the choices that they make. If you give this game a 6 because you don't want your viewers to get mad or dislike your video, if you say, I don't like the game, you know, I saw videos, and this is no shots, but the cowardly behavior of people like, I think this game is not that good. And then they're played 20 hours. You know, the first initial 5 hours, they'll make a video and they'll say, oh man, I don't like this game. And then you see them that they're still playing it. And then you look at their playtime. It's like, yo, they actually dedicated time to a game they dislike. I think that's weird. I'm the type of guy, I'll play a game until I don't like it and I'll turn it off. and that's it. You're not getting any more time out of me. I don't give you time if you don't deserve it. And so for this game, I definitely love looking that online to see the bad influences, how the internet affects people's personal, you know, inputs of how they want to speak. And I said this the other day on my stream, which was you got these content creators who wait until the chat decides what they feel or think. So if the chat's like, oh, that sucks, oh, this sucks, they're like, yeah, this sucks, and they'll start swaying that way. I've literally watched them initially put out a video positive, and then the next video is like, you know what, nobody liked it. Yeah, you guys were right, man. I don't like this. It's like, you just said you loved it, and then the next video you got a lot of dislikes and comments, and now you. So I think this game showcases the Assassins versus Templar in real life. You get to see who's on what side, and people just saying stuff to fit in. Even on social media, there was a funny, I'm not going to name the billionaire, a billionaire kind of trying to throw some funny shots online. And, he's a goof anyways. But the point was, even the Ubisoft account kind of trolled that person. They don't know better. And it's like, all right, dude, you could say the game ain't great, and you could give it a 7, maybe at minimum. If you're like, I don't like the open world, I don't like Assassins, I don't like, whatever you might not like. I don't care. And I think that's perfectly normal, because not everybody likes open worlds or action games or stealth, or, they don't like a lot of that stuff. And that's fine. Go play Pokemon Go, as I always say. But in reality, and we're going to fast forward to some action here. In reality, you're being influenced if you're just trying to crap on a game that's actually well made, and we're going to get into some of that too, because I think another big criticism that I have is I start seeing people like, I think are awesome people, by the way, huge Assassin's Creed fans, and they hate the game because the modern day story isn't there. And you know who I'm talking about if you're watching this. And they hate it because it doesn't have the modern day story. And they're like, oh, Assassin's Creed is supposed to have the modern day. And they're right. And I'm one of those people as well. But I can also say the game's amazing and be mad that they didn't put the stuff, the lore content that I wanted for modern day. I could be mad, but I also am not going to judge the game and say it's a bad game over something that I can't control and that isn't a part of the art. It's like somebody pointed the Mona Lisa. Oh, but where's the Statue of Liberty in that picture? It's like, you know what? Calm down. And so seeing that hardcore fans, and this is another conversation about influence, hardcore fans, if they don't get what they want, like parkour is an issue for me. These are two things, modern day stuff and parkour are missing from this game a lot. And so it's like, I'm upset, but I also know this game is very well done on other things, and I can still score it well for those things. I can't just be mad that I didn't get the parkour I want or modern day story. The Desmond era was the best modern day in my opinion. And the parkour in the first 3 games or so were the best too. Manual jump, back ejects, height gain, all that cool stuff. But in the end of the day, and I hope I'm not speaking another language here when I talk about hardcore conversations, but at the end of the day, those things influence people in a negative or a positive way. And watching people I know get mad at this game because it doesn't have modern day, or another guy who's a parkour guy, like, oh my God, the game sucks. Like, actually, the game's really good. Now, sure, I wish those other things were there, but it is what it is. And so, they're moving in a different direction of RPG with less of the parkour and less modern day. So maybe they'll put another game out that focuses on that, and that'll be amazing. And I'll be excited to get more of that. But again, very difficult to kind of get into all of that when I'm supposed to be talking about the story, but it's a part of the story, because now your experience and expectations are different. Okay. And so when YASUKE goes in here he's also expecting, and he's learned a life of honor. Okay. He almost died. All right. Spoiler alert here. He almost dies. We find out that he was getting shipped over here. They kill his mother. And a lot of bad things happen. He gets saved by an assassin, and he ends up um becoming this samurai and learning to live with honor and feeling like uh Oda Nobunaga made him into something special. And so he honors that man, and no matter what that guy did, he wants to respect him. Like a parent, like you want to respect your parents even if maybe they're not always right or good. And that's where he felt like, you know what, he gave me a second chance in life, he gave me purpose, he taught me how to honor and be a true samurai, and I'm going to, respect that. And that was what he was feeling. And it's totally cool, you know. And like I said, as fans, we have our personal wants. And so for me, I kind of related to Yasuke's story in that way, where it's like, know what I really want. But for example, these leaders, Obu Nobunaga, aka the developers, didn't give me everything I felt I should have gotten, and things didn't go the way I wanted them to. And we see that in some of these cutscenes where, Oda Nobunaga doesn't honor a fight and he shoots at one of the enemies when it's like, we're supposed to go in there like samurai. Samurai go in, you guys didn't know, they won't stab you in the back. They'll challenge you to a fight. They'll let you know they're gonna attack, and you have to defend yourself and you have to do what you have to do, but that's how they fight. And then they'll give you the chance to die with honor if it's really, a samurai versus samurai. And so those are the type of things that are amazing. And I think that as a gamer, we have to have that mentality too. And this is where, like I said, some of the story stuff, very cool to kind of discuss the parable, or let's just say parallels of Yasuke and us. And that's kind of why I brought up these topics right up front, because they are annoying and it's kind of ridiculous, to be real with you. But those are things that do happen. And so for me, Yasuke's intro and the intrigue for him was phenomenal. He's somebody you can respect and appreciate and like as a person, as he tried to be honorable even during the hard times and bad times when things weren't good. He was trying to stay true. And I think, as a creator, to be honest with you guys, it's easy for me to dunk on Assassin's Creed before it released. And the funny thing was, my videos always get a high 90s liking rating, 90% plus liking rating. And when I posted my first Assassin's Creed Shadow video last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, people crushed me. And I had the first time ever like a 70% like rating on one of my videos. And I thought, how, dude? All I'm talking about is the new trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows. Why am I getting dunked on? And I realized, hey man, no wonder these influencers are cowards and they'll just spew out nonsense every day. And they'll post up this, bad news, trash talk, toxic things, just to get engagement and to keep their, brands views, aka monetization, high. And I'm not here to judge anybody, right? Like, I mean, people can be selling drugs or doing some crimes, and instead they're just doing YouTube nonsense. And I honestly want to look at ourselves. We got to look at ourselves, and that's a big deal. Look at yourself as a viewer. If you're watching that content, you're a part of the problem. And that being said, I do believe Yasuke kind of learns that. He's like, I'm a part of the problem here with Oda Nobunaga. And that's where NAOE's story comes in, because she helps him realize, yo, this dude is no good, bro. Like, we're destroying this village. We're burning everything down. We're killing off all these people. You're seeing NAOE run through her own neighborhood. And just imagine having your neighborhood destroyed the way NAOE did, where everybody and maybe you don't know them, maybe you see them every day. Think about the neighbors in your household This is stuff people don't realize. The storytelling is deeper. Like I really cried multiple times for NAOE because I felt that. Just imagine if you're driving a car, a horse in this case, but driving a car through dead bodies of your neighbors. You see your neighbor every morning before work. You see your other neighbor who works at the gas station across the street, and you're cool with them. Hey, how you doing? And you don't have like best friend behavior, but you conversate. And then your neighbor who does laundry, you help them bring it up. You know, whenever you're outside and you see them with grocery bags, you'll help them carry the groceries into their house. You know, like here you go. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And just simple stuff that I do in real life. And for all of them to be killed off, this impactful just scenery of the dead bodies of my loved ones, or just my neighbors and my village, my people. And so everything that she goes through, powerful. And the relation to Yasuke when he comes and saves her from Oda Nobunaga later is an example of the crossroads that we face as people. Like, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and see what you're really thinking or really feeling. And some people who might dunk on this game's story, their opinion is, oh, I didn't relate to NAOE. Well, damn, bro. Like, how many dead bodies do you want of your neighborhood, your whole village, everything you ever knew get destroyed for you to feel something in the opening hour? This is literally the first 30 minutes of the game. And you're getting crushed like this at the very start. And on top of that, her father dies, and like people that she knows are dying. And it's crazy. And to think about that and to be real and not to sit here and, you know, oh, the story wasn't that good. Like, bro, they started off with a bang, and it continues in different ways, of course. And the whole open world is a deeper conversation to get into. A lot of Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games recently have done this thing where they introduce you to the story, and then they give you the freedom. And this is more of a gameplay conversation. I don't want to get too deep into it, but they'll give you the freedom to explore and do the story however you feel. Objectives can be done in any order. You can kind of unfold the story how you feel. And that isn't always the best, I'm gonna be honest, right? That's why like games like The Last of Us are better. It's a linear storytelling, like move forward, progress the story. It's very scripted. But in the open world, you want to have some freedom. And I think that helps the gameplay experience. And then you tell your story at the pace that you want. Is it always work? I won't say yes or no, because I don't think that it works a lot, because some casual gamers pace themselves differently than other people. A really well experienced open world player will pace themselves. They won't rush through the story only. They'll do some side missions. They'll learn about their, you know, companions in the story, and they'll kind of get deeper into it. And so with this game, they start off heavy with a lot of cutscenes in the first 10 hours or so, and then it starts to let you have the open world for your freedom. You know, but if I just played the cutscenes, you'll know, like, wow, look at this. She's introduced to the hidden blade right off the rip, but she's not told much other than this is something important. You have to go find this box. And what that does is, it's like, yeah, now you're on a journey. Here's the open world coming for you. And I'm not going to be there to guide you, buddy. Create your own story, your own Assassin's Creed. And she literally does that. And I thought that was powerful. And it's like, wow, like, okay, well, this is my life purpose. My father basically set me off on this journey to create my own Assassin's Creed. That's the name of the series, guys. And then she does so. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you missed out on that and you didn't think about this and say, wow, she fulfilled her father's wish, dying wish. And that was the last real order that he sent her on to do. And, you know, to think about that and to think about how insane this whole sequence gets as time goes, it's a beautiful thing. And I definitely want to kind of just take a moment to talk about her and the interest that I got from the box. What's in the box? What's in the box? Somebody insert Brad Pitt from the movie Seven, which was a classic. And she finds this box, but of course, as you know, she gets shut down in that situation. And we don't know what's in the box at the beginning of the game, or like what's in there. Is that a apple of Eden? And it happens to be the most important things in the Japan era. I'm not going to get too deep into that. Ragan, 3 different items. And it's super interesting because are these the most powerful tools from the Itsu? If you don't know what Itsu is, I'm not going to keep like trying to teach people everything when I speak, but they're basically the advanced species that created humans years ago, and they basically influenced the whole series. And that's why I was trying to tell you guys the modern day and the deeper lore isn't really focused on, but it's hinted at. And so now poor NAOE getting saved by her father, she's trying to do the right thing, and all of this stuff starts unfolding. Just imagine your whole village gets burnt down, things are bad, you're down bad, and then this whole situation happens with her father. Witnessing, everything that happens is pretty crazy and impactful. Now that gives you vengeance, and that gives you something that the game kind of showcases later about wanting revenge, and your whole life purpose being about revenge and not really caring about real life and living a life with true purpose. Her having the anger and having the rage of wanting that revenge, is pretty crazy in my opinion, to see what happens a little bit later in the game, which I'll also showcase, that is pretty powerful, and I also had some tears with, and I could relate to in a deeper way. And again, they take you on these beautiful journeys where you discover yourself and you discover more about what's happening. Super interesting. And again, this young girl trying to do the right thing for her father and for her village, and the struggle is real. And she's getting introduced to these main antagonists, these masked men in this group. And of course, you think about the Templars, you think about the assassins. And pretty sure they don't work for the assassins from the way they behave, but it's one of those fun, interesting lore kind of digging into, like, wait, what is really going on here? Who are these people? Is this the apple of Eden? Is this, and you kind of get into the discussion in your mind. And this is what I did. And this is literally still the first hour of the game. And it is amazing. It is amazing to see, all of this unfold, because it takes place where NAOE's future fiery, feisty type of behavior, she's like a badass. Never mind her combat and her stealth, probably some of the best, the best. I'm gonna say it right now. I think NAOE's stealth is the best as far as player control. I don't think that we can pass the black box missions as far as level designs, but as far as NAOE, she's a badass. And having her witness this very sad and tragic thing that happens to her father, it is literally just the beginning of that journey, and what made me want a sequel and a trilogy. And we haven't had a trilogy. I think that Ezio's series is well overlooked. I look at it as one game because it is so powerful and amazing. And you're looking at right now the story of her father, which you can keep going back to lessons of her father for the trilogy, and it can be very cool and touching moments throughout the trilogy if you bring in these conversations about father's lessons and things like that. You see how he dies with honor here, even though he's a shinobi. Probably could have thrown some smoke bombs and escaped. He's trying to save his daughter. And, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't work out that way. But this is a beautiful moment. I got emotional. More so thinking about her losing her village and losing everything. I've been in that place of life just crushing you in many ways, but she's dealing with the physical form of that. She's losing her village. She's losing her identity. She doesn't even know who she is anymore because, and her father. And so this is a beautiful moment. No, it's hard to say when somebody's passing away, but beautifully artistic moment to put the player through something powerful at the first hour of the game. And luckily, you know, we see the evolution, and we're going to get into the discussion about what does that lead to. But I'm absolutely fascinated by this. And like I said, if a trilogy happened, they can explore the father's story more through the flashbacks that NAOE does from the meditations. I think this can be a great trilogy. Of course, Ubisoft has all these other games that they're working on, and they don't got the budget to just keep throwing money at one studio. But I would prefer to have one trilogy, and why not with very cool protagonists that I think are amazing, that we can do something special with. And so we're gonna move on into some more deeper elements. This is gonna be probably the biggest conversation starter. As you see, NAOE needs to assassinate the one and the only. He's going in to take him out, and he's a really sly dude, to be honest with you. And he's ready to die, you know, and that is an honorable thing, and you gotta love him. And you start thinking about who he is, how he is, and you start saying, okay, he's kind of odd, where like he's done some honorable things, he's done some good, and I think all of us have done bad and good in life, right? Like we're not always some superhero perfect human. But with him, you know, being a villain but trying to do good things in between that, with YASUKE and other aspects, I feel like that was such a interesting thing with him, you know, and the way he wanted to basically die here. And we're going to kind of showcase some of it just so you can see the main part of this situation, where you're about to finish him off and YASUKE comes along. And like I said, the crossroad of these characters, the influence that YASUKE has because a samurai saves him, and we'll see that scene a little later, but samurai saves him. So right now he's loyal to Oda Nobunaga for making him a samurai, giving him purpose and teaching him. And then you have this fight that you have here with these two characters, the main characters. You're like, how could they try to kill each other and then become friends later, which we'll get into because that is a controversial conversation. But you can see right here, this is the greatest and most important scene in the game that connects them. Yasuke's mother gets killed, and an assassin with this hidden blade saves him, basically. And it's one of the most amazing sequences because the connection is deeper than both of them. And so now he cannot kill her because he really wants to know more, and they're the one who set him on this path. So he basically allows NAOE to live. Could have killed her. And it's pretty crazy. And again, these are the type of things where, do you allow society to influence you? Do you allow people that you care about to control your opinions? So my viewers, I love them, but I don't care what they think. Same thing with my family. I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna eat what I want. I'm gonna watch what I want. I'm gonna be who I want. And that is a superpower. Yasuke deciding in this moment to spare her is that example of like, the internet is not going to control my opinion of Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's the metaphor like, hey man, cut this out. Stop it. I enjoyed the game. It's not a perfect masterpiece, but it's damn good. And so that's where my opinion is. And I had it at an 8.5. I kind of put it up a little higher for the technical brilliance on a lot of little things. And again, you can put it back down to a 8.5 or an 8 if you want to say there's no parkour or there's no modern day lore. I'm tired of this game. Oh, this series is dead now. They don't have what I like. It's like, okay, well, play the older games. Get over it. But this is still a good game. And so to watch this situation, and what's even deeper is a guy like Oda Nobunaga realizing, like, you know what? I'm stuck in this ignorant way. Might as well die here because people are not going to look at me the same. They're going to consider me weak. All this stuff where he's like, I must die for my country, and the fight has to continue without me. And he's getting a deeper perspective and showcasing, like, look, I'm ready to die here, man. There's no point in living. You know, things went down and they're going to come after me anyways. And it's just going to get worse. So I'd rather try to do the right thing and die with honor. And this is kind of how the samurai lived in the past, where they, you know, would sacrifice themselves instead of, you know, going out like a coward, or begging for their lives, or becoming prisoners, or whatever the case may be, depending on the scenarios. We're not going to get too deep into the samurai ways, but this is a tradition. And so even the villain that he is, and like I said, we've seen this on social media, these villains will sacrifice themselves trying to do what they think is right. And in their mind, they're correct. It's delusional. And I've seen it over and over. But yeah, that happens. And even now, I've seen videos, funny enough. I went on YouTube just to see a video and search Assassin's Creed Shadows. And there's still people saying how bad the game is. The game is terrible. It's the worst game ever. Like, what game did you guys play? I just don't understand. This is a very intense villain moment where you're like, oh man, just to think about it. Like, and this was a powerful thing for Yasuke, because at the cost of what? He lost everything that he's worked so hard to do. He lost his mother. He got saved by the priest. The priest basically trade him to Oda Nobunaga. Oda Nobunaga says, no, you're going to be an honorable man. You're going to be a samurai. You're going to do the best you can here. It is outrageous, because now Yasuke loses all of that purpose, and he was the samurai, and he was the king of his domain, changing his ways. And then now he's basically not a peasant again, but loses that ranking to a certain extent. And then of course the beginning of her creating her own Assassin's Creed, you know, and this isn't, and people are gonna rip me up in the comments about, like, that's not an Assassin's Creed, they didn't really, you know, follow that way yet. Yeah, sure, the whole game isn't about NAOE being an assassin. She's exploring, discovering the assassins, discovering her mother, and discovering all these other things in this game. But it's a big story that's unfolding that and giving Yasuke and NAOE purpose. Now, as you see, Yasuke loses everything. And by the way, this is my playthrough. He loses everything. He's going in there to talk with NAOE, and he basically surrenders to her and tells her that he wants to absolutely submit to her, because the hidden blade has a lot of meaning and purpose, and he wants to find the truth, the true purpose, the true meaning. And of course, NAOE has revenge in her heart. You destroyed my village. You killed off all my people. Who wouldn't feel this, right? Like, I feel her, and I feel him too, because he's lost everything. He doesn't have nothing, and this one thing can give him purpose. I think we all felt that way in our lives, both sides, whether it's NAOE or Yasuke. And so for me, this is a mirror into ourselves. And I looked at it and I felt it deeply when he kneeled, told her, you know, he's willing to die for this right now, just to work with her, to be with her, and to learn from her. And there's something bigger than the current battle that they've had, and that he's seeking for something. You know, in the meantime, she's boiling up with rage. She wants to kill him and destroy him. And this is, to me, the most powerful scene in the whole game and the most meaningful one that I've shed many tears. I watched this twice, my second playthrough, and super emotional, very powerful. Again, he has every reason to kill him. He did spare her, so she has some type of like remorse in her heart, but she also realized you've destroyed everything, and that's where she wants to end him. She was about to, and we get one of the most powerful speeches from a kid that I could remember, most deepest conversations. And this whole scene to me is what helped make this game for me, and it all made sense to me. I know a lot of people would say, oh, they became too friendly and they got too close, and that was way too easy for them to kind of, you know, work together right after all of that nonsense. And I disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree, because everything that they faced and everything that they were going through and the realities of those times and those eras. I was explaining to one of my viewers that when you have trauma and you go through hard, very difficult things mentally, emotionally, physically, you become more acceptable to others. Even if they're the ones that's hurting you, you might accept them. And especially if it's a big traumatic thing like this, you can work with others. You do whatever it takes to survive, and you do whatever it takes to complete things. You have to really be out there. Desperate measures call for desperate maneuvers, you know? And so it's an example where Yasuke started realizing, like, Oda Nobunaga is a bad man. He knew he helped him and he teach him to be a samurai. That's great and all. But dude, you're sitting there about to shoot down a defenseless old man instead of actually let him fight one-on-one, take on a challenge. And it is crazy to me the way Oda Nobunaga, you know, showcased himself to be this villain, while Yasuke is like, nah, man, we gotta try to live with honor. Like, what are we doing? And this is where you see his arc start to say, wait a minute, I can't be a part of this, and I got to do more. And it makes all sense. And I mean, Yasuke is just caught in bad times and doing whatever he had to do to survive. And trying to be an honorable man, he decides to have a fight with the old man and let him die with some type of dignity. Yeah, and this is the greatest part right here, where I wanted to kind of dive into it, hopefully not cry during. NAOE absolutely should have chopped his head off right there. But the young man, Juni, I'm gonna call him, he tells her that you're a monster too if you kill him. And he explains to her that he knew the truth about her. And you have to listen to his story, which was very powerful. She killed his father, and he knew that she was a monster and all the bad stuff that she's done. So everything that Yasuke did, NAOE did to this kid, but Yasuke didn't kill her father. And so he explained how when they recovered her, that he's seen her as a monster. And he's a great artist. He draws pictures. And he was drawing pictures because he knew that she had the hidden blade, just like the person who killed her father had. And so, and she was recovering and she was in the house, old man's house. He's seen her as the monster. And he actually wanted to kill her himself. And this is a very powerful scene of, again, emotional trauma that causes this type of thing. This kid loses it all. he's about to be vengeful. And of course, this won't lead to anything good. He'll probably become a mass murderer or something. But that was what was in his heart. And he's seen her as a demon, as a monster. And then his sensei taught him that she's not. And you have to let the hate out and not look at her that way. And he explains that he ended up seeing her as something different. He ends up seeing her as a friend, as family. And it's a beautiful thing because as a content creator, you make friends and family, you know, by connecting with people. And the same way they're connecting together here, it's the same way I do with my viewers. I feel the same way. So this is a beautiful analogy of metaphor of our lives. And so as he explains that to her, he tells her, you know what? I know you were bad. I know you did bad things. If you kill him with the katana, you hand the katana to me and I'll do you next. Because you're both monsters. And yeah. Forgiveness is a powerful tool. It's something I have to deal with as I get emotional talking about it. I had to forgive my own father for the violence he's done in my childhood. And trying to basically shoot my mother multiple times. And I know it's a little graphic, but I mean, this game is graphic, but you know, he shot her 4 times, point blank range. She has a bullet in the back of her head today. She's still alive somehow, but forgive him, forgive myself from feeling negative thoughts of that. Forgive my mother for the trauma that she went through her whole life and how she dealt with everything that she'd been through, taking it out on her kids sometimes. I had to forgive her for that. And then my broken home, you know, growing up and forgiving myself for becoming broken for many years as well. And so that moment right here of forgiveness really resonates with me. And I understand completely how people can connect and work with each other and kind of build relationships through the trauma, through the stress, through the struggle, through the pain. And it's beautiful. And so from that moment on, it made me automatically root for this group, specifically those 3 characters in that scene, and made me say, you know what? I'm here for this. And so that's why, regardless of the ins and outs, there'll be somebody who will tell you they got too friendly too fast, but it was a necessity to survive, a way to cope, to not lose the little bit you have. NAOE lost everything and all she had was this kid. YASUKE lost everything and all he had was that hidden blade to remember his mother. And it's just so many powerful elements like this that this game has offered and gave us, you know, the story of these characters and their development as you go. And again, if you want to try to be cynical and say, well, they got too friendly too fast, I don't believe in any of this. Well, you haven't been out in the world. You haven't experienced life. People tend to cling on when it's desperate times, desperate measures, and rough times will help you cope. And so sometimes family isn't blood. Sometimes it's this right here, where you develop a friendship that's deeper than all of it. And so I say to you, you know, take a look into this story. And this is literally just the beginning of what the story unfolds. From here on out, this is when you get to the open world and you start really sinking into the story. And this is where a lot of people will say, oh, there really wasn't that much story after that. It was just whatever. And the criticism can come in and, oh, I want to put this game into a 6. It's like, dude, it already went up quality wise. This alone right here was good enough for me. And from there, the story gets better in a lot of different ways. And it might not be, like I said, what we expect or what we want, but you're going to see in a second, there's more to the story and then how it unfolds. And I want to kind of just touch on this a little bit. And we're going to go into starting to see the one and the only Yasuke facing his arch nemesis, who doesn't even remember him. This guy's so evil and so sick that he's had a lot of slaves, a lot of enemies, and he's like, who is this weirdo? What do you want? And it's kind of like dismissive, like he doesn't remember killing his mother. He's like, well, what did I do, man? What are you talking about? And it's kind of crazy to think of how sadistic this man was. And, you know, as you know, in those times, they would take some slaves and then bring them over and kind of trade them and use them as property. It's a pretty sad, sick, and twisted world. And Yasuke, as a young man, is on a ship and his mother's helping clean. She ends up picking up private information. Remember, the Templars is a big part of this story, and this is one of the actual Templars. For those that want some lore, you get a little bit of Templar hints and clues in a lot of different conversations that we can have, which I'm not going to do in this video. But this is the climax of Yasuke, where it was his driving force. Sure, you get traumatized, ripped from your country, put on a boat to be a slave, treated unequal, treated however, and you got to deal with that while your mother's right there with you. And then you have to witness everything that you see here. Of course, you're going to have vengeance in your heart. Of course, you're going to have revenge as your driving force. And the mother deserved better. And they're just trying to serve and do the right thing here. They were pretty humble. Unlike, you know, some other resistances who might fight back and do insane things. You had a peaceful group who were trying to serve. And somehow they still get treated unfairly. Which is what happens in society, what happens in the real world. All right, I don't know if you know, there's a real world out there where people get this all the time. I grew up in the ghetto, and I am a colored man who can't go to the store without getting treated like a suspect, and that's something that I've hated. But as society's principles and views, I've not done no crime, but they're gonna look at me like I did. And so the discrimination, the mistreatment has been a part of society for a while. Not saying it's okay, but you're looking at the early days of this discrimination and the treatment, like if these people are nothing, which is a powerful message to showcase in a game from Ubisoft. And I think that's not even conversated about at all, and this can be its own video where this racism, this discrimination is heavy. But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on this assassin who saves the day with his hidden blade and basically gets Yasuke to be set free, which allows the future to be what we saw. Again, this is a flashback, but you see how amazing this assassin is, and we see how Yasuke is holding on to his mother, the trauma. It is sad, and this assassin is basically showcasing to him real purpose and real fight. And Yasuke realizing, you know, probably an innocent man before this, I have to be better. I have to do better, and I got to fight for mine. And it's inspirational. Now, the assassin dies here, but he tried to help him. Look at the hidden blade. And that is a example of why he saved NAOE and why he was willing to work with her, because they're the ones who let him live. They're the ones who kept him alive and let this be what it is. And it's miraculous that they end up in Japan. Of course, the Templars working all over around the world, trying to control society and all this stuff. I mean, there's a long conversation to have about the Templars. We're not going to go too deep into it, but the principle is the influence of the Templars and Assassins war has is definitely the focus on this game. And this sequence here, the conclusion and the climax to give Yasuke a closure that he deserves, in my opinion, very powerful. And the question of what is canon or what not's canon in this game, I think it's a deeper conversation that I don't want to get into. I chose simple things. I chose to try to do the right thing and spare people when I can, but also feeling like, hey, this guy got to go, and taking someone out whenever I had to take them out. And then just kind of sticking to what this characters I felt would do, you know? And in this moment, like, Yasuke's not going to spare this man and let this man be because of that vengeance. And as we talked about, NAOE had the same experience in a different form, but they've lost. They've lost a lot. And it's unfortunate and it's sad, but it's a reality. And so for me, this touched home in a lot of beautiful ways and was meaningful to give Yasuke his closure. We're not going to watch every detail of it, but we want to kind of showcase the climax version where the story kind of continues and showcases him taking this finish moment of the Templars. And to be honest, one of the best things that Yasuke kind of does in this game is say, I'm ready to go to war with these Templars. And it's basically, he didn't know who the Templars were, but he knew he declares a war against them. And this is one of the most impactful parts. As I said, a DLC is going to come, multiple DLCs hopefully, but also I would love a sequel. And for what would that be and how would that go? The question is, personally, I could see Yasuke becoming an assassin and him having more parkour in his play and more stealth in his play, still being a badass. I think that is the way to go. And of course, NAOE, she's a badass already, and maybe she gets a little stronger. You know, I don't know if they're gonna do another double protagonist. If they did a trilogy, I would love it, and I think it's the best way to go. But Yasuke could end up being the ultimate samurai assassin because he has all the samurai traits. Imagine if he can parkour, and imagine if he got more stealth tools. He'll be the ultimate assassin, and I do believe that, you know, because this combat is a lot of fun. So I am excited about the possibilities. And while I'm not going to dive too deep into like the DLC, kind of talk about where that can go, I feel like, you know, the DLC can give us more Assassins and Templar reveals and conversations that are going to help us kind of settle this whole discussion and this conversation. And I think it's going to satisfy the hardcore fans if they went that route. But they can also just expand on, okay, now we're settling into taking out the Templars. Now we're realizing who the assassins are. Now we know the truth about this, and we're not going to settle. We are going to war for this. We're not going to let this be. And I think that could be amazing. Now, my closing statements about this story, you know, with NAOE setting off on a journey, is a pretty interesting one as well, because she's going to try to discover more about her mother. Is her mother alive? Is she dead? You know, there's hints, and we've gotten some stuff from a gentleman who kind of reveals the truth about NAOE and tells her about her mother. And that could be very interesting, again, for the DLC. Where does that go, and how can that take you to that next level is the question. Those are the type of conversations that we need to have, talk about. Again, we're watching all of this when it comes to the boxes. We talked about them. I don't want to get too deep into them. I think the DLC will reveal some of that and showcase, you know, her mother is alive or is she dead? And those are the type of questions that you have to ask yourself. And Hanzo reveals, hey, let's go look for her. Let's go on this adventure. And that is where, for me, you know, this story really is compelling. And then you're gonna get the credits rolling, which are 2 hours long, and I did not watch. But who cares? Because the internet's silly. They try to complain about the game's credits. I'd never heard about other video game's credits in my life. The game was so good that the biggest complaint people came up with after the game release was that the credits were 2 hours long. It's like, if that's the worst thing you're gonna try to put on the internet, I mean, come on. But anyway, that's just me being silly here. A lot of fun stuff. You can see this is me skipping through, and now we're gonna dive into the finale. I want to kind of touch on what I started feeling when I finished the game, and you got to see a lot of like unity between them and them trying to figure out what's next for their journey and where they're gonna go and how they're gonna do things, and the development of your hideout and what your goal is going forward. Start discussing with all of the people and getting into what the future is, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It ends with hope, it ends with purpose, it ends with a new future for these characters. And yes, it doesn't end with, oh my god, the Assassin's Creed and the Templar War. Like, no, we're just starting this war. We're just gonna declare war on the Templars, and they're creating their own Assassin's Creed, their own version of things, and it's a lot of very cool elements. Of course, you have them as a family, which is the most beautiful thing. Anything is possible, as it says, and that is where this journey ends for me on this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my personal take and why I love this story. Again, I don't expect anybody to feel the same way I feel. You don't have to like the game. You don't have to like my opinion. You don't have to like anything about what I'm bringing in my conversation, but I absolutely had to share my view. And maybe you feel the same, maybe you don't. That's okay. Share it in the comments about what your thoughts were as you listen to my personal experience, you know, and let's get into it. Besides that, I have a lot of guides, tips and tricks and things like that you can check out and kind of journey into if you feel like it. Either way, I appreciate y'all. Make sure you stay locked in for more. See you on the next one.